Do your guitar solos sound like this? Do you want to make them sound like this? If so, I'm going to show you exactly how to do that in this video. My name's Dylan Andrews. I've been playing for over 20 years, and the big difference between solos that sound great and solos that are more robotic and lifeless is usually phrasing. Now, if you're not sure what phrasing is generally what you can do to a note to make it sound awesome. So we've got slides, bends, hammer-ons, pull-off, vibrato. All right, there's a bunch of different types of those that we're going to go through in this video. So a great way to practice using phrasing and getting better at phrasing is to start with a complete blank canvas. You want to start with a lick that sucks, okay? Like this one. It's okay, but there's nothing great about it. It's just 4 notes, nothing added to the notes, no creativity, it's just those 4. So you want to start with something like that and then slowly build upon it. So this is in the A minor pentatonic scale. And then what I'm doing here is I'm using notes, or I'm using frets, 5 and 7 of the 4th string, the D string. Then I'm using 5 and 7 of the 3rd string, the G string. So the lick starts out this way. So now what we're going to do is we're going to start adding things to this to make it more interesting. And the first thing that you can do is adding a slide. So some of the most common slides is just a standard ascending slide. So instead of just playing these notes like this, we could slide to one of them. Now I'm doing what I call a nowhere slide, meaning my starting point isn't defined. You don't hear it. You don't hear it like, you just hear it. You could absolutely go, sorry. But I like to do these kind of slides. And then I could add maybe a descending slide on the last note. Now it's already a little bit more interesting. Right? Or maybe I could start with the descending slide and then slide up to the last note. Then you could try something that I really like doing, rearticulating slides. Now rearticulating is a word that just means you hear a note more than once. So if I do this and I want to rearticulate it, I hit it again. But a great way to hear the note twice is by doing rearticulating slides, and it sounds like this. Very cool technique. So if we're going to go to the 5th fret of the 3rd string, you can put your ring finger on the 5th fret of the 3rd string. You're going to strike it, you're going to pick it. Then you're going to pull off to 3. Now I don't want to actually hear 3. I just want, as soon as I pull off, I slide immediately back up, hearing that note again, rearticulating it. Just like that. So you can do it to every single note of the lick. So far we started with this, and then we're adding different slides in. Right? Now it's sounding a lot more interesting. Something else you can do is now adding bends to it. So instead of playing, let's say, this note, I could just bend to it. Right? So now adding the slides in with it. Another cool bend to do is a pre-bend. So we got So a pre-bend is where you bend first without actually hitting the string. Then when you're at the top, you hit it, and you only hear it coming down. So you can add bends, you can add pre-bends to it. Right? And then something that I did there is you can add hammer-ons, pull-offs. Right? But already by adding hammer-ons, by adding pull-offs, bends, rearticulating slides, pre-bends, the lick already sounds so much more interesting. And if you've already gotten some value from this video, please like and subscribe so you can get more tips on how to become the guitar player you want to be. Now, the most important one that I find that adds life to your solos, I'm going to show you at the very end. But before we do that, The next one I want to show you is something called a microtonal bend. This is a very bluesy style kind of bend, and what it is you take a note and you just make it sharp. So you have whole step bends, you have half step bends. This is like a 1/4 bend. I just make it a little bit sharp, but the key to making this sound good is when you get to the top, you stop the sound. If you bring it back down, it's just going to sound like it's out of tune. So it's just a little bit of flair you put on the note. So if I start combining this microtonal bends with the other bends and slides, and you can change the notes around, change the order. Now we're starting to get a much nicer sounding solo. The next thing you can add that I love to do is something called exotic bends. Exotic bends are just when you hit a note that is outside of the key and you bend it into key, which gives it kind of an exotic sound. So I'm in the key of A minor here. And if I hit this note, which is a C sharp, which is not in the key, and I bend it into key, that would be an example of an exotic bend. Or I could go, hit that G sharp, which is not in key, and bend it in. So if I mix this with the other stuff, start sounding a lot interesting. So when you're starting to add all of these things to the lick, there's so many different ways that you can do it. Adding a slide here, mixing a slide with a bend, doing different things. So you want to spend some time just trying to experiment and go through it. And there's a specific reason why I've only chosen 4 notes. Because when you do just 4, the majority of your focus goes towards trying to make the phrasing interesting as opposed to trying to choose all of these different notes. So start with a limited amount of notes. But the last and one of the best techniques you can do to make your solo sound amazing is vibrato. Vibrato is something that you need to master and get down if you haven't already. But vibrato is just simply, it's like a bend. I mean, you really are bending the strings, but it kind of looks like you're wiggling the string. Just like that. Now you can do shallow vibrato, wider, super wide. But the thing about vibrato is you want to make sure you always return back to 0. So if this is the note, when you vibrato it, the sound wave and the string's going to do this. So you want to bring it back down to 0. It's very common for people to do vibrato and not bring it all the ways back down. So make sure you bring it back down. But adding vibrato to notes that you let sustain are going to not only increase your amount of sustain, but make it sound more interesting. So 3 different types of vibrato is you have standard vibrato, you have delayed vibrato, where you just wait to do the vibrato, then you have my favorite, bent note vibrato, which is the hardest. Alright, so now you try to add this into those solos. So we started with this, and then ended up with something much cooler. So action steps for you is to choose just 4 notes, start with it just completely plain, just play those notes, and then add 1 phrasing element that I talked about in this video. Then add 2, then 3, then 4, and just keep building on that until you've got some really cool, nice licks. But I hope you enjoyed this video, got a lot of value from it, and is going to make you a better guitar player if you actually take action and use that. And if you're in the Lawrenceville, Georgia area and you want to personally take lessons from me, then just go to lawrencevilleguitarlessons.com and fill out a contact form, and I'll reach out to you as soon as possible. But I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one.